It surprised her how quickly everything changed. At first, it was just a small moment, something so ordinary, she almost ignored it completely. A passing thought, a quiet feeling that brushed against her mind and disappeared again. At least, that's what she thought it would do. Disappear. But instead, it stayed. She noticed it later that evening when the room had grown quiet and the distractions of the day slowly faded away. The television was still playing in the background, voices blending into meaningless noise. But her mind wasn't paying attention anymore. It had drifted somewhere else, back to that same unexpected feeling. She leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand why it was still there. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overwhelming. Just a strange curiosity that had quietly planted itself in her thoughts. Why am I even thinking about this? She murmured to herself. It made no sense. She had always been someone who kept things simple. She didn't chase complicated emotions or allow herself to get pulled into situations that could disrupt the calm life she had carefully built. That was the rule. Stay balanced, stay controlled. And for years, she had followed that rule without question. But tonight felt different, because the more she tried to ignore the thought, the more it returned, stronger each time. She stood up and walked to the window, hoping the cool night air might clear her mind. Outside, the streetlights cast long shadows across the empty road, and somewhere in the distance, a car moved slowly through the quiet neighborhood. Everything outside looked calm. Inside her mind, not so much. The thought returned again, and this time, she didn't push it away immediately. She allowed herself to explore it for just a second longer than usual. That was her first mistake, because the moment she gave the feeling attention, it began to grow. Her heart beat slightly faster, not out of fear, but out of something she hadn't expected. Anticipation. That realization made her laugh nervously. "Okay, that's ridiculous," she whispered. But the laugh faded quickly, because deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't ridiculous. This was curiosity turning into something more. She had experienced curiosity before everyone does. It comes and goes, usually harmless, rarely leaving a mark. But this felt different. This felt personal, like a quiet voice inside her mind asking a question she wasn't prepared to answer. What if you want this more than you think? She froze for a moment, staring at her reflection in the dark window. The idea felt uncomfortable, not because it was wrong, but because it challenged something she had always believed about herself. She had always assumed she was in control of her desires, that if something felt risky or uncertain, she could simply walk away without hesitation. But tonight, that confidence felt fragile. She tried to distract herself again, scrolling through her phone, flipping through messages, pretending the feeling would fade if she gave it enough time. Yet every few seconds, her thoughts returned to the same place. And each time they did, the curiosity felt stronger. Soon curiosity turned into something she couldn't easily name interest. Then anticipation, and finally, a quiet realization that made her heart race just a little faster. She wanted it more than she had expected. The moment she admitted that to herself, even silently, the entire situation felt different. Because acknowledging a desire changes everything. Before that moment, she could pretend the feeling was accidental, temporary, something she would forget about by morning. But now the truth stood clearly in front of her. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something she genuinely wanted to explore. And that realization brought a wave of emotions she hadn't prepared for. Excitement, uncertainty, and a small but undeniable sense of danger. Her mind immediately began listing all the reasons she should stop thinking about it. This could complicate things. This could lead somewhere unpredictable. You might regret it later. But another thought appeared quietly beside those warnings. Or maybe you won't. She exhaled slowly, realizing how strange the moment felt. For so long, she had believed that controlling her emotions meant avoiding situations like this entirely. But standing there in the quiet glow of the room, she began to understand something new. Control doesn't mean never wanting something. It means deciding what to do when you finally realize you do. Her reflection in the window looked thoughtful now, almost curious about the person she was becoming in that moment, because the truth was simple. Even if it was uncomfortable to admit, she hadn't expected this feeling. She hadn't planned for it, but now that it was there, she couldn't pretend it didn't exist. And the most surprising part of all was this. The desire she had been trying to ignore wasn't frightening anymore. It was honest. And honesty has a strange way of making even complicated emotions feel clear. She looked out at the quiet night one more time, letting the silence settle around her. Somewhere deep inside her mind, the final realization finally surfaced. She wanted it not out of impulse, not out of pressure, but because a part of her had been curious for longer than she realized. And now that she had admitted that truth to herself, the real question wasn't whether the feeling existed. The real question was what she would do with it next.